Braxcast time once again, guys. This is the 67th episode of the Braxcast, and had a fantastic live stream or episode of Braxcast live with John's Long Box, so be sure to check that out. And big thanks to him for coming on and staying for the entire show. It was a really great conversation that we had. He was a fantastic guest, but we do have some stuff to get into. Dallas Fan Expo is going on this weekend, and I don't think there's much news coming out, but we do have a pretty interesting thing. It is the 4th issue of the Rippazine has been made available. It launched on the 27th, already selling over 1,000 books, over $20,000 in sales. And this is featuring the main story of Catch and Kill, featuring Winslow Valiant and Betty Brooks. So Winslow Valiant is an investigative reporter for the Forest Park Star. And his this 16-page short story being written by the Saska sisters with art done by Sebastian Carcito, if I'm getting that correctly, and How Canola, if I'm getting those names correctly. But I know the Saskas are writing the story for sure. You've got the regular edition, the collector's edition, and then signed and graded copies for both, a shirt and a poster. Pretty typical for a Rippazine collection. And of course, we will show this preview art. So in the third issue of the Rippazine, Catch and Kill was introduced as a one page with a bunch of post-it notes. And we had a bunch of information given to us that gave us some insight on characters in the Rippaverse, especially for longtime fans. It was really, really interesting to see this. And now we know who is behind this. It's none other than Winslow Valiant. And of course, he's got the partner, Betty Brooke, right there. If we can, we'll zoom in a little bit. Trying to zoom in a little bit. I probably should have gotten some better art, but we do have Winslow, and of course Sebastian's art looks absolutely fantastic in this preview right here. Absolutely love the idea of an investigative reporter. Of course, as we talked about on live stream, John and I, there being newspaper firms is a running gag, or I'd say it's a trope for comics, and tropes exist for a reason. So, of course, you've got the Daily Planet, the Daily Bugle, if I'm getting those correctly. Clark Kent, works for the Daily Bugle, if I'm getting that, or the Daily Planet, if I'm getting that correctly, and then J. Jonah Jameson for the Daily Bugle, with, of course, Peter Parker working for J. Jonah Jameson and getting pictures of the Menace Spider-Man, if I'm getting that impression correctly. But this does seem to be like a more serious, rounded character that's going to give us some more insight into the inner workings of Forest Park. Maybe we'll see some stuff that goes down with Darren Fontano. That does seem to be the implication there. Of course, there's a lot of, interest with Darren Fontano as a character in terms of his interactions. Of course, his presence with Projexus. If you read his Dokuman card, we know that he is praised by politicians. So that definitely seems like an angle that Winslow would be going at, right? So I definitely think his story would coincide, or I should say connect with Darren Fontano. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Saskas do with this character, and of course how the fans respond to Catch and Kill, because every short story that the Rippazine has put out has gone over really well with the fans. And of course we know that Saoirse's getting an ongoing series, and the Salvage is getting his own graphic novel in the Salvage Lethal Force. And it seems like Dirty Deeds, which is written by Carol Brown, and with the art done by Evan Scale, they really knocked it out of the park. The fans definitely attest to that, and that most likely is getting at least the graphic novel. And if they don't, then that is, of course, I would say a violation of the Rippaverse Code of Ethics, because they're not respecting the customer. But that really is the commentary I have for the 4th issue of the Rippazine. Really cool that just surprise dropped this, and it does seem like they're at a pretty good schedule of releasing the Rippazines. Of course, we're getting previews for Horseman, I think Great War Separation 2, and Yaira number 3. If I'm getting that correctly, that's being released in Rippazine number 4, so you got a good mix of previews. Of course, we've got a nice short story, and we'll have some in-universe articles as well. So they got a pretty good format for the Rippazine, and it's only going to get better as you get more feedback and the team gets more experience. But there's also some stuff in Rippasend, which I think the most interesting thing is DeathShroud is going to be released for Rippasend. Now, this originally came out through Kickstarter, I believe making about $31,000 off of a 70-page or so graphic novel. And the Rippasend graphic novel is going to be 172 pages, which will be, I think, about like 90 or so pages of new content along with all of the old content that was released in the original campaign. Really interesting. This definitely seems like it to be a really violent, gritty book. I believe Chad Larson is the writer. I forget, it's V. Keon, if I'm getting the name correctly, is the artist. And I think there's, I don't know, Keenan White's working with them as well. And they've got some people who've done work for DC and Marvel involved in DeathShroud as well. Really cool character, very gritty, very violent, very gory. Might be a little bit too much for some people in the Rippaverse, but I think it's going to be right up the alley for a lot of other people. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the fans respond to this when it launches, and of course, when it comes out, how people are going to respond to that. And of course, a 172-page book. It's probably the longest single book that has been put out by the Rippaverse. Of course, you can kind of consider it to be a collected edition because it's going to have that old book and then new content as well. And then, of course, we have the Rippaverse Trinity that's over 300 pages, right? But in terms of like a single book, this might be the longest one the Rippaverse has put out because Item 3 is 144 pages. And that, of course, has become fulfillment. Item number 3, I haven't gotten my shipment notification yet, but hopefully next week I'll get it. I'll review it. And it does seem like the Ill-Advised Dark is being tied up quite well, especially with it being 144 pages. But while Item 3 is fulfilling, we do have another pretty cool announcement. This one just came out today. So Gary Buechler, if I'm getting his name correctly, is also known as Nerdrotic, and of course, good friends with Eric July. So it makes sense that his first book is coming out through Rippasend. This is Waiting for Nerdrotic from Prison to YouTube. So I don't know too much about Nerdrotic or Geeks and Gamers. I'm not the biggest fan of them. I did watch a lot of Ryan Cannell's videos back probably, I don't know, about a year or so ago is when I really stopped watching because it was just the same stuff. Nothing against them. It's just, I can only see Ryan Cannell basically talk about how the Disney movies are in the gutter in terms of the box office numbers so many times before you just go to other things. And that's just the nature of the beast with the algorithm, is that it's always feeding you stuff and your interests change. So there's nothing, nothing against the G&G guys. But Gary from Nerdrotic owned a comic book shop. He's a very much a well-attested to nerd. So it does make sense that they would have a rapport, or Gary would have a rapport with Eric July. And because of that, he's releasing this novel, or I guess book, I should say prose book, called Waiting for Nerdrotic from Prison to YouTube. He had a life as an addict, and then he cleaned up, owned a comic book shop. So he definitely had a complete transformation in life. And this book is going to be his basically, I guess, memoir that attests to how he was able to do that. So it's, of course, a pretty interesting thing. Of course, this is not necessarily going to be something that's going to be really enticing to comic book fans. This is more or less something for fans of Nerdrotic, and he does have a pretty big following. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one does, but this isn't really one for the typical comic audience. So there is that. But of course, it's really cool to see Rippasend is releasing more stuff. So this was the same week as DeathShroud came out. So Rippaverse is really heating up. Rippasend is as well. Of course, we had Horseman #1 close out, and that made just under $400,000 as well. And while that's going on, while Dallas Fan Expo happened, so it was a bit of a muted closeout stream, muted closeout for the collection. Excuse me, because most of the team is focused at making sure that Dallas Fan Expo is going well. It does seem like people are having fun at Dallas Fan Expo. And like I said, I don't think there's anything big that's going to get announced. Of course, I'll upload this and like maybe 30 minutes later, there'll be some big announcement. But if there's anything like that, then of course I will be talking about it on the Braxcast. But this is a bit of a shorter episode. Of course, I speak kind of fast, try to like rapid fire everything. But that's really the big news of the week is the Rippazine #4, the closeout of Horseman #1, making just under $400,000, selling over, I believe, just around 12,000 books. And of course, Item 3 is fulfilling, and the fans are enjoying it. The ones who have gotten it so far have, and hopefully I get it soon, and I can read it and enjoy it and review it as the ill-advised arc. So I never did a review for ISOM 1 and 2 video reviews, I should say, though I did review them on my Substack as written reviews, but I'm going to review ISOM ill-advised, where I just go through the entire ill-advised arc, give my take on that, and then the written review will be a review of ISOM number 3. That's for what I'm planning on doing, just to keep you guys in the know. For the guys who do enjoy my reviews, which I'm very grateful for, there are people who do enjoy what I do, even a little bit. But that's really all I have for this episode of the Braxcast. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Joker is out. Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.